All right, hello. Today is Friday, July 31st, 2020, and this is something I've been wanting to look at for a while. It's been up in my browser. I just haven't gotten around to reading and recording it. The name of this website is rumormillnews.com, and I think this is an interesting topic. And, you know, this sort of stuff I enjoy: UFOs, New World Order, conspiracies, homeschooling, etc. I came across this, though, so here we go. I'm not even sure how to pronounce this name, to be honest. Payseur? I don't know. Owns and runs it all, hidden hand. So this was published in November 2019, so I don't know. It's less than a year ago. And I think I think Q had posted about it, or someone mentioned it. And I was curious, and I looked into it a little bit, and Neon Revolt, which is an excellent website, had an article about it. And so I was just trying to get some information on this family. Apparently, I think they control George Soros. That's the rumor. Maybe bigger than the Rothschilds, but no one's heard of them. Something like that. And I'm just curious. So again, I'm going to read this and apologize if I mispronounce the name, because I'm just not sure, because I don't know much about this family. So the Payseurs, however you say it, are basically what I would expect to find at the top of the cabal. Their roots go back at least centuries. They own vast swaths of the United States business environment from the very top, and yet nobody really has any idea who they are, and you will never ever see their names mentioned on the evening news, no matter what happens involving them. Interesting. According to an unsourced account, when Louis Cass, again, Payseur, died in 1939, his assets were divided through 3 trusts in 3 different states. Following is the holdings of just one of his 3 trusts, which leaked out of court in one state. I found this interesting from David Icke's book, The Biggest Secret, on the family's origins. And, you know, with David Icke back in the day, I thought he was totally insane, entertaining. And I thought sometimes, you know, he's got a combination of truth and just BS, because he would talk about, you know, pedophilia in high places and blood drinking and Satanism. And I just thought it was a bit ridiculous. But more and more I'm starting to think, you know what, maybe David Icke wasn't as wrong about as many things as I thought. I still don't necessarily think he's right about everything, but I think he's more credible now than I did before. He's always been entertaining, but anyway. After the revolutionaries executed King Louis, the, I guess, 16th, Ramsey Piso Bush, and Queen Marie Antoinette, her son Crown Prince Louis, still a toddler, was placed under house arrest at the Paris Temple. 2 years later, he was smuggled out in a laundry basket by his Dr. Naudin, the retarded nephew of the Marquise de Charges, was substituted, and he died in 1795. The prince was secretly taken to the Vindy Palace and given sanctuary by Prince Conde. He was later moved to a fortress on the River Rhine, where he lived under the name of Baron de Richmond. I'm so bad at surnames. I'm so bad at last names. He arrived in England in February 1804 with the former royal paymaster of France, George Payseur, and was protected by King George III, the monarch at the time of the American War of Independence. The prince changed his name again to Daniel Payseur, while George Payseur became George Bayshore. King George III gave the prince, now Daniel Payseur, a ship and awarded George Bayshore 600 acres of land in North Carolina. When they arrived in America, they were given help by the Bodie family, who were related to the British monarchy. And you know what this is kind of reminding me of is Fritz Springmeier's Bloodlines of the Illuminati. I don't know if this name comes up in it or not, but that's also something I'm interested in looking into more, is the work of Fritz Springmeier and these, you know, alleged bloodlines. Well, they're real bloodlines. I wonder how much of it is accurate, how much of it is factual, how much is speculation. Anyway, let's keep reading. This is a long one. Before leaving England, the prince bought shares in the Virginia Company, and once in America he acquired gold mines, including the Gold Hill Mining Company, which he purchased secretly using a trustee, George Newman, as his frontman or proxy. With the invention of the steam engine, Payseur began to build railroads and then lease them to operating companies. He also established the Lancaster Manufacturing Company to produce timber for railroad products, and the Lincolnton Iron Company, which later located in Chicago, and formed two subsidiaries, Carnegie Steel and Pullman Standard Company. What strikes me in the face immediately is why the conspiracy to protect him. That's interesting. It even extended to the King of England, who bent over backward to protect him. And then, as if that was not enough, the king works to elevate him to the highest levels of society, despite him being the blood relative of a supposedly rival superpower's former leadership. The king gave him a ship and 600 acres in America and sent him forth as if he were an agent with full state support. When he arrived in the U.S., another powerful family related to the monarchy helped him to advance through society effortlessly. Where did all of his money for investing come from? Why can you assume his investment decisions were all made with the most sensitive intelligence and never in any doubt of being successful? Good questions. And the Payseurs were reportedly not just tied in with intelligence. The intelligence apparatus was founded with their employees. David Icke wrote in The Biggest Conspiracy. I feel like I need to look at that book. I've tried reading some of his books before, and sometimes they're hard to get through. But anyway, the Payseur Empire became heavily involved in banking. Their Bank of Lancaster became the North Carolina Bank and then Nations Bank, the biggest bank in Texas, Interfirst, of which George Bush is director, merged in 1987 with the Republic Bank to form First Republic. This was later absorbed by Nations Bank, which then merged with the Bank of America. These two launder CIA drug money, I believe that. I don't know if they laundered it or not, I wouldn't doubt it, but CIA drug money, yeah, that's real. And that's appropriate, because the forerunner to the CIA, or OSS, was created from the Payseurs or whatever, owned security network, which was formed by the Selma, Rome, and Dalton Railroad to protect the military railroad system. It's all wheels within wheels, family within family, and Americans have not a clue who really runs their lives in their country. I am intrigued. Icke says, why did they put an S here? They messed it up. I think it's just David Icke singular. Says the Payseurs have lost control of their family fortune. It could be, but he could be controlled opposition and covering for them. And that's the thing. People say that about David Icke and Alex Jones, and I just feel like I never even know, like everyone's a double or triple agent or controlled opposition. It's like, how do you know anything with any certainty these days? Or they might have organized a great deception, which has given everyone the impression they are no longer players in the game, which makes, would be a smart thing to do, even as they changed their names yet again. Payseur wasn't even their real name, and went even deeper underground. In this game, it is difficult to divine the truth and who you can really trust. Right. Because if there was someone who people are listening to, that person is instantly a target, either for corruption or removal. And if even they are trustworthy, the deceptions can be so effective, even an honest outlet can be drawn into the deception. But there are things you can figure out for yourself. Think about it. Gates, Buffett, Zuckerberg, Bezos, Jobs, and yet each of those only one business investing empire. The Payseurs were maybe are bigger by an order of magnitude, but you've probably never heard their name, seen it on the news, or heard of it in discussions, blah, blah, blah. There are no red carpet photos or socialite daughters partying across the nation and posting pictures to Instagram. You can't even find their names in accounts of history or any mainstream media news outlet today. They dwarf the robber barons whose names dominated the history books. And who writes the history books? You got to wonder who is in charge of it, who owns the publishing houses, and I'm sure you could look it up online and have the official publishing house, but you still got to wonder who's really behind, if you control history books and schools. Anyway, yet they are barely mentioned online outside of niche conspiracy sites like this one. There is literally a news blackout on their name. What I find even more interesting is the beginning, however. Looking at the origins of the family, what we see is a toddler with no power or influence who a major power wanted control over, if not to kill. He was just another orphan with not only nothing, but a death threat for anyone who helped him hanging over his head. There was no advantage to helping him once he shed his identity by changing places with the retarded nephew of another royal, who could easily have been murdered and buried to conceal the secret exchange of identities, or even killed by the monarchy, who thought he was the one to end the future potential Payseur threat. Why did everyone treat him as if he was somehow destined to become a major power? Why was it not just one person who labored on his behalf, but a full conspiracy that spanned continents, including everyone from the doctor to high-level royals? And what are the chances this one child would be the one to found a major power in the world, but a major power nobody would ever have heard of? What did everyone who labored to produce this result all know? I don't know. It's pretty nuts. It feels like there is something even more concealed here. I have no idea what it is, but it seems there are many who know all about it and are working together and risking everything to advance it, but none of them are talking. So yeah, I don't know. And it looks like there's a video series on Q Lounge on YouTube, so I might check that out. 3-parter. So yeah, I don't know. I still don't know much about this family. I want to look into this a little bit more. If you watched this video and made it to the end and you have any suggestions or recommended reading or any useful information relevant, please share in the comments. I would like to know more about this family. So if you know anything, please let me know. And thanks for watching.